Go, you go ahead.
All right.
Yeah. Keep going.
This is the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast, where we interview travelers, explorers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the best tips and stories from around the world. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Today, I'm going off the cuff. I was asked by a good friend of mine to do a recap of the Michigan Adventure Race. My good friend James Appleton of the 46 of 46 podcast, always shaming me to do more stuff. So I'm just going to talk through the race. I know this isn't the normal podcast that I do, but he was really interested. And if he's interested, that means maybe other people are interested. So first I'll start with what is an adventure race. It's essentially a land nav course where you run, bike, canoe, kayak, whatever. Those are the usual modes of transportation. I know some of them have a lot more difficult stuff, like bigger scale ones. This is just the Michigan Adventure Race. That's what we competed in. And it's kind of a culmination of testing physical ability, testing your ability to work under pressure, testing your ability to read a map, which is intimidating for a lot of people, myself included. But not to spoil anything, we came in first place in our division, 3 to 4 person men's. No, not even men's. 3 to 4 person overall. We got first place by by chance, really. We didn't set out to get first place. I mean, we wanted to do well. Our goal was to do better than last year. My friends Kyle Smith and Mike Mathis. Last year we came in like 11th. So it did not come on our radar that we were going to come in first in our division. So we came in, I believe, 7th overall, like of everyone that did the race, which is pretty good for not ever having done an adventure race before last year. And this year's race was a lot more difficult in the land navigation department, and physically it felt a lot more difficult. And I'm putting out a YouTube video on the other Aptitude Outdoors YouTube channel, which is just a recap of that. I filmed the whole thing with my GoPro, and you can see towards the end it gets real nasty. But first I'll start off with, the course that we did this year. The distance is relative to what you decide to do. So you could make it long and treacherous, or you can be smart about it and plot out your own course and make it as simple as possible. So we ended up, I don't wear fitness watches, but my friends did, and both of them died. And at the end of the day, what their watch collected, we did approximately 20 miles of gravel biking, which is basically dirt roads, sand roads up in northern Michigan. I think there was a couple miles of riding on the road just to get to the boat launch on the Manistee River. So 10 miles of that was essentially downhill. There was a couple small climbs during the first leg, but on the way back, it was mostly an uphill grind, which I'll get to in a little bit. And then we did about 6 miles of bushwhacking off-road through the middle of the woods, which you can see in the YouTube video, just the thickest, brushiest woods that you've ever seen. And then it was about 4 miles of canoeing. We didn't pay attention very much to the emails and stuff, so we could have rented kayaks, but we didn't. We just took whatever they gave us. And, you guys see I do a lot of paddling, so that was probably my strongest part in the race. But I'm just going to go through the race and talk through it and kind of what my mind was like during sections of the race that ultimately led to us winning. And, one thing I love about adventure racing is that you're really self-sufficient. We carried all our gear with us, which I can talk about briefly because everybody I know, they say it all the time, I don't give a shit about gear. Basically had a little like ultra running vest. I had a little tiny collapsible water bottle in there that was for electrolytes. Didn't help at all, obviously, because I was cramping up at the end bad. And then I had a water bladder inside that. You're required to bring an emergency blanket. You're required to bring, you have to bring your own mountain bike, and you have to have a flasher on it for safety. In the pack, I had snacks. Obviously, I had my compass on me at all times. I actually brought a Sawyer water filter mini for emergency, just in case we did get lost in the woods, which is possible. But if you have even like the most basic level of land navigation, you can just shoot off a bearing to a road, like east, west, south, whatever. Like there were roads surrounding all of us. So like that wasn't really a fear. More concerned about running out of water in the middle of one of those things and having to go like 2 miles back without any water, because I drink a lot of water. I'm continuously dehydrated for some reason. And other than that, I don't think I had any gear besides my GoPro. We had a bike, running vest, food, and our brains. So let's dive into the race. First segment, how it was laid out is we got there late at night, the night before. We were allowed to check in between 7:30 and 9 p.m. and get our map to look over it. So my friend Kyle and I got there about 8. We looked over the map a little bit, and then our friend Mike got there around 9:15. He drove all the way from Wisconsin, so it was a long drive. We looked at the map until about 11, kind of came up with a plan, got pretty overwhelmed and nervous because the land navigation, which it was so much more complex than last year. And they even told us before the race, there's a few checkpoints that if you're not like hyper confident in your land navigation, skip them, which I'll get into in a minute as well. But we decided, we were there not to try and win a race. We were there to push our abilities. Kyle and Mike are cyclists and runners. They run a lot. I'm more of a strength training and, paddler, and I do a lot of, more outdoors, hunting, fishing, stuff like that. So we definitely all had different skill sets in this race. But so we looked over these maps and we kind of got our idea of how we wanted to do this race. And we watched a couple of YouTube videos on land nav just to do some refresher. And in the YouTube video, I make a joke like, I think we're doing pretty good for learning how to do this last night. And that was kind of like an inside joke because Mike and I have taken online land navigation courses before. I mean, I've taken I think it was like a 20-hour online land nav course a few years ago, but it's not something you use every day. So it's easy to forget. And basically what you need to know is you got to learn how to shoot a bearing and just follow that line. If you can do that, you can find a checkpoint. It's always seems a lot more complicated than it is, but that's the basics of it. So long story short, we wake up in the morning. We were one of like 5 people, I think, who actually camped there overnight. Everybody else had hotels and stuff. We camped right in front of the door of the lodge at the Cabernet ski resort up there in Manistee Forest in Michigan. Rolled out of bed, I started hydrating immediately, getting nutrition immediately. I can't live without my coffee, drinking it right now. And rolled up into the lodge. We got a little bit more time, maybe like another hour to look over the map. And when you're in that room, everybody's so intently staring at their maps and they have their highlighters out and their compasses and they're drawing lines and writing down their plans and they're writing down coordinates and stuff. And we're literally sitting there thinking like, oh shit, like we're in way over our head. That was what we were thinking all day. So, the nerves build. They're laying down all the rules. You have 6 hours to complete the race. You have to be back by 4:30 on the dot. Every minute over 4:30, you lose a checkpoint. So no matter what, we were going to be back by 4:30, no matter how many checkpoints we had. So they go through the briefing. We go down to the starting line, kind of getting out some nervous energy, pedaling around the parking lot on our mountain bikes until they start. We all line up. funny enough, I ran into John Simpson from my podcast with the Winus Point Conservancy. He was there doing the adventure race. I believe him and his wife placed. So that was awesome. Awesome to see you, John. We kept staring at each other from across the parking lot because a lot of these guests I only see over Zoom, so I've never actually met them in person. Kept looking at each other, and I'm like, I'm just going to go over there. So I met John in person. Awesome dude. Awesome that he's doing adventure races. But anyway, we line up. They kind of give you like 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 3, 2, 1, go. And then you're off. You're on your own with your team for the rest of the day. We haul ass. To preface this, it's raining. It did not stop raining all day. It rained, and it was probably like 55, 60 at the warmest. So it was chilly. So we're hauling ass in this mountain bike in this big group. Everyone that's doing the race at that time is all bunched up. So we're rolling. We ride pretty hard for about 15 minutes, I think. We get to the first staging area. So there's 3 staging areas. One was right outside the lodge. There was one about, 15 minutes away from the lodge. And then there was one, the furthest out was the paddling checkpoint on the Manistee River. The rule was you could not do the checkpoint closest to the lodge first. It had to be the last checkpoint. So you could do 3 first, you could do 2 first, but you couldn't do checkpoint 1 first. Or, I'm sorry if I got the numbers wrong, but you get the point. So we decided to just get the land nav, the harder land nav section done first thing, because that was our biggest weakness and that was our biggest fear that was making us the most nervous. So we get there, we drop our bikes. There's a little confusion. There was a flag hanging right at the checkpoint, and I don't think Kyle punched it, or he punched it in the wrong part, whatever. It didn't end up mattering. They said it was fine. So we got the checkpoint. But you get off the bike and you immediately hop off the bike and you're looking at a map and you're breathing heavy. You're disoriented from just like going super fast. And then we literally like run off into the woods. Mike shot a bearing and we just went for it. We found it in a couple of minutes. And then it boosts your confidence. Like early on when you find something, you're like, okay, we got this. The next bearing was due west or something, like right across the road. So we shot that bearing, we ran, and mind you, there's tons of people doing the same thing. So everybody's kind of going in the same line. But one thing I think we did differently than a lot of people is we didn't just try and rely on other people. Maybe that's not the best way to say it, but we shot the bearing and we stuck to our guns and we followed that bearing instead of just hoping the other person was right. We found checkpoint 2 or whatever it is. There were 6 checkpoints in this area. So we run across the road, easy. The first 2 are very easy, kind of get you confidence up. Even the race director said that. So we find number 2. Then we start getting into the hard ones. I think 3, 5, and 6 were very difficult checkpoints because they were much further into the woods, not near a road, not near anything. So we were most nervous about checkpoint 3. Same thing, took the bearing, shot off into the woods. We undershot it because there was a series of hills, but you can't really, when you're running through the woods at full speed, trying to get your location, it's really hard to did I just go over this hill or this? And we're not advanced map readers, so we're just kind of using the terrain to figure out generally where we are, because this isn't like a super accurate reading. I mean, they give you a circle where this flag could be. And so we get a little turned around because we're like, well, it should be here, but we were at the wrong hill. So, we see some people coming the other way, and people were very nice. They'd be like, oh, well, you just got to keep going that direction. Everybody there was super cool. Nobody was like, I'm here to win. I'm not telling you anything. It's a competitive sport, but it's not like people are out there to have fun. So we ran into some people, and you just can't be afraid to ask them, hey, are we even close to this thing? And well, if you tell us where the other checkpoint is, and I'm like, I would, but we haven't been there yet. So we run into this group of people. They're like, all right, well, if you keep going that way, I'm not telling you where it's at, but you're on the right track. So we find checkpoint 3 after, I don't know, I think it took us about 15, 20 minutes, which is 4 times as long as the other ones. We're like, all right, we got this. So we took a little more time shooting the bearing for the checkpoint 5, which was one of the 2 that they said was very difficult. If you're not confident, don't do it. So we shot a bearing and we came up with a plan. Kyle was in the front. He was kind of the eyes looking for the checkpoint. Mike was in the middle. He had the map, and every time we hit a landmark, he would kind of like show where we were on the map. And I was in the back with the compass, holding the bearing straight, calling out, "You're going too far this way. You're going too far that way. We got to stay. Go to this unique tree that you can see. Okay, that's a straight line. Okay, the tree in front of you is this tree," which is in navigation is very standard practice. So keeping them in line, they're not far ahead of me, but like I'm in the back, like looking the landscape over to make sure we're going straight with the compass. So we go through the woods. Some other dudes run up behind us. So we're all kind of in this group together because we're all nervous. We're like, I hope we could find this one. They stay with us. We end up finding it, which on the YouTube video, I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I cannot believe we just found this because it's one of the most advanced checkpoints. So we're like freaking out. And we get there. I'm like, all right, guys, we can't get cocky. We got to calm down. We're just going to just keep on this track and just do the same thing again. We take our time. We double check the map. We double check our bearing. We go to checkpoint 4, which is due east, straight line east. You're going through some marshes. You're going through some gnarly stuff. I was afraid I was going to lose a shoe a few times. It's like not quite ankle deep mud, but it's just wet. Branches are slapping you in the face. I keep getting my shins just keep getting beat to hell with all the underbrush, and it was just rough. If you're a more advanced map reader, you could skirt things and go easier path, but we weren't, and we just wanted to get it done. So we just stuck a straight line and committed. We did the same thing. This one was a little tougher to find. It was a little more buried in the woods. Generally, they put them in, from my experience, a little more open areas where you can kind of walk around and explore. Checkpoint 4 was very difficult to find, but we did find it. The dudes that followed us to checkpoint 5 never found it, come to find out at the end. They never found checkpoint 4. So we found checkpoint 4, and then 6 was the most difficult to find. So we went for it. We're just like, let's leave it all on the floor, guys. Like, you know, we probably aren't going to win. Like, that's our whole mindset going to this. Like, we're just here to push our abilities, which is something that I talk about a lot, you know, competing with yourself.
Life is hard, and we're out here doing larger-than-life things, whether it's pushing ourselves physically in the outdoors or mentally at work or in the podcast studio. Absolute Aid is here to help you focus, recover, and stay calm during your most intense moments. Absolute Aid, created by nature, made with science, for those who seek to do more.
And that's really important. I mean, you should have a good competitive spirit. You know, it helps make things fun and keeps you motivated to just keep going, which I'll talk about later too. And then, so we shoot off into the woods. We're extra careful with this bearing because it's not just like a due east or a due west direction, sort of like how the other ones were. We had to really pay attention. So we shot this bearing. It was pretty far away, and we just go for it. We walk and walk and walk, and this is where you have to have that confidence that you're gonna just run into it if your bearing was correct. So we walked and walked up some pretty steep hills, down some pretty steep hills, through some little streams. We just keep pushing ahead straight. And we found it. We found one of the hardest checkpoints. We found both of the hardest checkpoints that they warned everybody about at the beginning of the race. And then we get there. The point now is to shoot a bearing back to the checkpoint, like the main checkpoint, the staging area, I mean to say, like a general bearing to that area. But we don't want to overshoot it, so we tried to shoot it a little bit before it so we could hit the road and then just run to that staging area and get our bikes and head off. So kind of like in the moment we're trying to shoot this bearing, but it's behind us. All the other ones have been like going forward or in a southerly direction or a western direction. So like Mike shot the bearing and I was like, wait. We can't do that because we're heading the wrong way. And we forgot that you need to flip the bearing sometimes. So we finally crossed our mind. We got the right bearing and we just shot off into the woods. We just went for it. And then it started getting a little weird. I think we just started to get like a little beat up, and we're starting to get a little winded, which isn't a great sign at the beginning of a race because we're pushing so hard and we're so amped up. Eventually, I'm just like, screw this. Let's just shoot a due east bearing, because we also got tired of just getting slapped in the face and the shins with all this brush. So I ended up shooting a bearing due east to just find the road, and it would be a lot faster to just run on the road, which was easy. The road ran north-south, so we just went east and we hit it. It didn't take super long to find the road. It was just a rough bearing. So we got to the road. We ran as fast as we could, which isn't that fast. And we found the checkpoint. There's still a ton of bikes there, and we're like, oh, all right, I think we're doing okay. So we took a quick drink of Gatorade from the barrels they had there, hopped in the bikes, and this is like a straight shot downhill, full speed, terrifyingly fast. I think Kyle said we clocked it at like 35 miles an hour on his watch or something, which on gravel is scary because if you fall, it's like game over. You're going to be just fucked up. Like you're going to be... Yeah, it's not a good scenario, but we just, lay it on the floor. We're competing. We're trying to win. Well, no, we're not trying to win. We're trying to do the best we can. You're always trying to win. But so we bomb this hill. We get to, it flattens out at the bottom to this straightaway on this gravel road. So we're just trudging through this stuff. I'm starting to lose steam. Like I said, Kyle and Mike are much better cyclists than I am. I'm just kind of a generalist. I work out. I try and stay in decent shape to be able to do this kind of stuff, but it's like not my specialty. Like Kyle he rode a 200-mile race like a couple weeks before. That shows you how his level of cycling ability. And Mike mountain bikes a lot. He does like triathlons and half marathons and things like that. So they're more of endurance athletes than me. So I'm starting to struggle. I know I can physically do it. I just am starting to get tired. And so we just ride it. There's a checkpoint we have to get off the side of the road under this bridge. So, easy to find. There's only one bridge on the road. We get there and then we bomb this hill down to the Manistee River. I mean, it's like we didn't even pedaling. It's just like straight downhill. We kind of crouch down. We ride as fast as we can, bust into the parking lot and drop the bikes. We throw on our raincoats at this point because we're just cold because from the wind blowing through the ride. And we hop in the canoe, which is probably my strongest point. And again, we didn't even look at the compass during this because like the areas of the river were so obvious that you really didn't need to. We just like knew the number of checkpoints and the order we wanted to go. So we just went for it. And that's where you kind of have to stick to your guns too, because we saw other people going different directions to do things. We're like, oh, well, maybe we're doing this wrong. And those thoughts cross your mind because you're just like, well, did we miss something or whatever? We just got to like stick to your guns. And we did. We took the route we wanted and we went through this little cut. We got 2 of the checkpoints in there. We ended up getting hung up in some sand. So we got to get out and push the boat because, the 3 of us aren't small dudes. We were bottoming out in the sand where a lot of other lighter people were not. Get the 3rd checkpoint. I think there was 4 on the river. We get to this 3rd checkpoint and there's this group of guys that we've been like bouncing back and forth with the whole time. And, they were kind of talking shit a little bit. They're like, oh, it doesn't look like you're ahead of us anymore. So like that got me amped up. I was like, man, screw you. And so we find this checkpoint and we just start ripping in the kayak. I'm like, the canoe. I was like, let's go, dudes. And like, they probably didn't mean anything by it, but when you're in that competitive mode, you're just like, I'm going. Like, screw this. They aren't going to beat me. And I think there's 5-point checkpoints on the river. I'm sorry. I don't have the map in front of me. Probably would have been a smart idea, but here we are. So going, we start ripping down the river. There's a cutoff to our left downstream. So we're with the current. It's not moving insanely fast, but we're ripping as fast as you can in a canoe with 3 big dudes. We find the other checkpoint and it didn't look like the pictures they posted post the race. So I'm wondering if it like fell off because it was like tucked into this weird corner and it looked all collapsed and stuff. But we found it and we punched the card that we had and we just haul ass to the last one. It's far downstream. Probably, it could have been close to a mile downstream, which means we had to paddle back up to get to the boat launch. So we just ripped down as fast as we can. We're passing people. We get that checkpoint, turn around, and just haul ass as fast as we can back to the boat launch. And we get there, I jump out. I'm like, I got to fill up my water bladder because we got a climb on the bikes all the way back up, which is all I could think about bombing those hills. Like, we got to come back up these things. That really kind of got me like I've been in a lot of situations where I have to push, a lot, like all the stuff I've ever done. And I'm just like, you can do this. It's just going to suck. So I had a lot of like fruit leather and granola, and I just plowed down as much as I could physically fit in my stomach. Not sure that's the greatest idea, but you burn. I think we burned close to 5,000 calories in this race. So like, you need to eat. It's hard to eat 5,000 calories to begin with. So just chowing, drinking as many calories as I can through electrolyte stuff and just chugging water all day long. So we're hopping our bikes. We're all geared up. We take our raincoats off. Because like, you just get too hot riding a bike sometimes, especially on an uphill where it's just strenuous the whole time. We took our raincoats off, stuff in our pack. So I get on my mountain bike, literally turn right out of the parking lot, start pedaling, and we start going uphill, and I go to shift down on my front ring, down to the small ring, and my chain wraps around itself twice. Like, it doesn't just fall off, it wraps around, scratches my frame real bad, and wraps around. So it's like locked. Like, it's full tension on the chain, and I'm thinking, shit. It's like, we're done. I'm gonna have to drop out of this race because I didn't have like, we couldn't find the master link on the chain to pop it off, unwrap it, do it. The race team didn't have, because they were right there in that parking lot, they didn't have the tool to remove the crank or whatever and take it all apart, unwrap the chain. And Kyle's like, well, I can pop out a pin, but I'm not sure if I can get it back in. And if I can't get it back in, then you're shit out of luck. Like, you're just out. You can either walk back, just give it hell, run it, but like, or just walk your bike. And I'm thinking like, well, if it's gonna break either way, and we're gonna have the chance of losing it regardless, I'm just gonna horse this thing out. And I was like, sweating bullets. And I didn't film this on the YouTube video because like, I was like, I want to continue this race. I don't give a shit about this right now. So like, my mind wasn't like, oh, turn your GoPro on. And I didn't want to like, I try to really do a fine line between filming too much and actually just like giving the race hell. So I always try and like do the filming while I'm doing something. So I'm just like, screw this. I'm not doing it. It really didn't even cross my mind. And then, so I just push down on the chain as hard as I can, and it starts to move a little bit, and I just push it out, pull it around, and it comes off, and everybody's like, holy shit, I can't believe that just worked. So I put it back on the big ring, and then I'm really like, damn it. I am going to die on this hill, because you can go into the lowest gear or whatever you want, but it's still not as easy as it would be pedaling on that smaller sprocket. I don't know what they're called. I don't know the technical terms, a lot of that stuff. So don't crucify me. But I think what happened is it was so caked with mud and rocks and stuff that it just wouldn't catch right. And it just kept falling off and then wrapping around itself. So I tried to switch it down one more time very carefully. Almost did the same thing. So I said, screw it. I'm just going to grind this out. And that just put me in a bad place in my mind. So I'm riding up this hill. The first hill wasn't too bad. I make it to the top. We're on pavement. So pavement's way easier to ride than dirt. So we get up. We get in a line like if you were to road bike. I don't know if a lot of people have road bike experiences, but generally if you're racing, you get in a line, and then the three people or however many people are in line, they rotate. One person goes to the front, give him a break, because they're breaking wind the whole time. I mean, the wind is what makes you slower. So the guy in the back has the least hard time pedaling. But since Kyle's such a strong cyclist, he just held that line the whole time. And Mike and I kind of got a relief. Mike was second, I was third, because I was the weakest cyclist. So on the road, we did great. I mean, I was right up on their tail. And as soon as we turned left onto the road, it was sandy rock mix, mud, just chaos. I just kind of fell apart, and I just couldn't keep up with them. They kept having to slow down, which made me feel terrible because I was like giving it all I had. And that wasn't even the long climb. Like, that was still looming in my head. So I was like, dude, while we're on this road, you're not moving very fast. You got to eat a lot. You got to eat a lot. So I just kept eating as much as I could. And the sand doesn't give you a lot of traction. Even I had a big mountain bike with big mountain bike tires. The sand does not give, or the dirt does not give you a lot of traction because you're sinking in and stuff. So I'm trying to eat with one hand. My front wheel's going all over the place and I'm trying to keep moving. And I just had to shut my brain off and just pedal and pedal and pedal and pedal. And finally we get to the hill, the climb, it just starts to go up and up and up and up and up, which felt like an eternity. And we get to this first section of the hill, pretty steep, pretty long climb. It flattens out and then it turns right. And then it's a longer section of climb. So Kyle, being the awesome dude he is, he's like, hey, my bike only has one. It's a 1x, so it has one sprocket on the front, whatever it's called, chain, gear, whatever. And he's got a big one on the back. He's like, dude, I can ride. Like this, I'm not worried about this. Give me your bike. You take my bike. And that way you have those gears where you can climb for a longer period of time without having to work so hard. And I really didn't want to do it, but I was like, if we want to even get back to the main starting point of this race, I have to do this. Like, you know, it's a pride thing. Like, I don't want to wimp out, but, you know, I was thinking of my teammates. I was like, these guys want to get back too, and I'm the one holding them up. So we got to do whatever it takes. So I give Kyle my bike. He's still just killing me on my bike. So I get on this hill, and there's always this point you have to make a decision, and my legs hurt. Like, they were in physical pain. My quads were just screaming up these hills. And you have to make a point where you make this decision, like, I'm not getting off my bike. And a lot of people talk about the pain cave and the blah, blah, blah when you're in the gym. Like, when you're in the gym, you work out for a half hour. You work out for 45 minutes. You might work out for an hour. Like, the pain cave, I thought I'd been to the pain cave before. This wasn't even close. This was a whole new level of hell. Like, I don't know how I did it. But I said to myself, you're not getting off this fucking bike. That's what I said in my head a million times, and a lot worse things than that. So you're not getting off this fucking bike. I don't care if you die. You're not getting off this bike. Because I knew the second I got off the bike and started walking, it was game over. I was going to wimp out, and it was just going to be this mentally defeating thing. So I made a choice that I was not going to get off the bike unless my leg fell off. Like, and I know the human body is capable of a lot more than you think it is. Your brain has these stops in it that's like, I don't like this. Maybe we should take it back a bit. And I've read all the stuff. I've read Goggins. I've read Cam Hanes. I've read, a ton of books about thru hikers and endurance racers. And I was like, this is your opportunity to test that theory. And do not get off this bike. I literally kept saying, do not get off this fucking bike. That was like my mantra, man. I was just like, you are not getting off. And I saw people walking their bikes right at the top of this big climb. And it was so mentally defeating. Every time we get to a section, it looked like it was going to level out. It just turned a little bit and it still kept going. And it felt like forever. It was probably 40 minutes. And get close to the top. I saw two people get off their bikes. And this is like where Goggins says taking souls. I was like, if I can stay on this bike, I'm going to take their soul because they're going to see this dude just not stopping. So we get up to the top of the hill. I pass those two people and we get back to the first staging area where we had initially stopped and did the land nav. And there's a bunch of people standing around taking a break. And Kyle and Mike are like, do you want to take a second? And I'm like, we got to go. We got to go. If we're going to finish, we got to go. So I saw the guy that was talking shit and I smiled and I was like, yes, we got you, you son of a bitch. So I'm sure you're a nice guy. You probably won't ever listen to this, but just know that you carried me through this race with your with my made up competitive against you. So,
hey everybody, thanks for checking out this episode. If you feel like you're getting something out of it, go down in the link below and buy me a coffee. The Aptitude Outdoors podcast is fully self-funded by me. So if you're digging it, I'm just throwing out a tip jar and I appreciate you listening. Let's dive right back into this episode.
I saw him standing there just huffing and puffing, eating, taking a break. Look, I'm not stopping. So there's another little climb after that, and then it kind of goes into these rolling hills, which weren't too bad. And then we hit this big downhill, and people got off their bikes right before this big downhill or taking breaks. So we're still passing people. The people that rode out of the parking lot hot when my chain was all screwed up, they passed us. They had probably a few minute lead on us, probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Caught up to them. Past them. I said, that's it. These people will not catch up to me. I will not let it happen. There were 2 more big climbs before we bombed the hill to the parking lot for the final check-in. So I'm like just gritting my teeth, wanting to die. I've never been that deep in the pain cave ever. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just like every second was torture. It felt like every moment felt like an hour. It just was so immensely awful. Like, I don't know how to describe it other than that. Like, hell on earth in my mind. And I'm like, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to get off this fucking bike. That's what I kept saying. So to get up to the final hill, there's a stop sign there. I mean, I'm barely moving. Like, you could have just pushed my bike over and I would have fallen, but I would kept pedaling because everybody else started walking and you're going so much slower, even though it doesn't feel like it, because you feel like you're crawling on that bike. I knew if I could just stay on, it was good. And this is when my left quad started to cramp up. Every time I'd stand up, it would cramp. And so I had to stay sitting if I wanted to keep going, which sucked. And I'm trying to drink as much water as I can, eat, drink as much electrolytes as I can. They're not doing shit. So bomb this last hill to the last checkpoint. I could hardly talk in the parking lot. I'm just like, yeah. They're talking about the map, and I'm like, yeah. So I eat a lot more because I'd run out of food somewhere up on one of the climbs. I don't remember which one it was. The whole thing was a blur. So the car, we're allowed to stop at our car and refuel and like change clothes. I'm like, I'm not changing my clothes. I'm just going to stay in this miserable state just to keep me like grounded. Like, you need to get this done so you can get out of these clothes and get some more. Because I didn't want any comfort at that point. I want to get the damn thing done. So we get to the parking lot, refuel, try and drink more electrolytes. I eat like 3 of these giant granola squares I brought that are totally loaded with calories. Chow down a couple pieces of candy just to get my blood sugar up. And I think we had about an hour or maybe even less, 45 minutes to get as many checkpoints as could. Because there's no way we're going to get all the checkpoints at this point. So I'm like, let's go. I'm already just screwed. Let's let her rip. So we start running uphill, full speed. And there are these dudes that kept passing us. So we caught them on the run. They got us on the bike. Well, they got me on the bike. Passed them on the run up the hill, taking souls, baby. We cut down this dirt road. We're trying to find this intersection where this like 2-track meets the road, this dirt road. And then we see people come out of the woods and Mike's like, oh, maybe we should go in there and try and find out. I was like, dude, let's stick to the plan. We're so close to being done. Let's not deviate. We know we can do this if we find the right shooting off point. So let's just go there. So we get to this track, all running uphill, this 2-track. We shoot off into the woods. We find this checkpoint. So we're like, hell yeah, we got at least one checkpoint in this last section. We're getting really close on time. I mean, when we were on top of the hill, we ran back down to the road. I think we had a half hour or maybe, half hour left. And we're standing at the road. And Mike's like, all right, we have a decision to make. We either go and get this last checkpoint and head back, or we head back now and just call it good. And Kyle's like, all or nothing, baby. And I was like, I'm so glad you said that. I'm in the worst pain of my life. Everything sucks. But I mean, if we can get one more, let's get one more. Steepest climb we had to do all day. Of course, the last checkpoint we get to. Climbing up this steep hill. I'm struggling. If you watch the video, I am struggling. My left quad completely locks up, will not unlock. My right hamstring starts to hurt and cramp up. So I'm basically straight-legging it up this hill. And like, we're getting to the top. We're getting to the top. I'm still holding this bearing. I'm going as best I can. I'm just like pushing through the pain, hoping that I can make it. Kyle grabs the last clip on the checkpoint, and then it's downhill. So I can go downhill. The backside of my body's working because the bike was all quad. So I'm busting ass down this hill, and I'm like apologizing. I'm sorry, guys, to let you down. Like, I can't keep up. They were like, dude, this shit's hard as hell. Like, you're giving it everything you got, which made me feel great. We get to the road. I'm basically like walking as fast as I can on this incline. There's this dip in the road. Every time there was a downhill, I would just run as fast as I could because it wouldn't cramp up. And then we got about 20 minutes to get back to the race. So we know we're going to get there in time unless something catastrophic happens. And there's lines of people going down this road. They're all walking. And they're like, why are you running? We're like, we're trying to get done. They're like, oh, are we close to the time cap? And we're like, no, it's a race. Like, we're trying to get back faster than you. So, sorry. Start like running downhill as fast as we can. My calf locks up. Just at this point, I didn't even care. I'm just like, everything hurts so freaking bad. So running. We get back to the parking lot. We have to cross basically the distance of the parking lot, climb steps, and the race is done. So we run up these stairs, struggling. We get through the door, whatever. We're done. Cool. We take a break. We're sitting there just chilling. I'll take a sip of coffee here. So, chilling at the tables. They had like this buffet. We're all just plowing through food, like calming down. And I had a massage gun. I was just beating the hell out of my quads and my hamstrings and my calves, trying to unloosen them up. Plenty of, potassium and stuff, trying to get everything working right again. Stretching, blah, blah, blah. I go into, Mike had this gigantic tent, enough for like 12 people. It was massive. I go in there, I change into some dry clothes, put on some deodorant so I kind of feel like a human again, somewhat. Feeling good. I'm feeling like glad it's over, feeling good. And we're sitting at the table, bullshitting. They're getting ready to announce awards. And we sit next to the guy who had won the individual race last year. And we were just talking to him like, dude, how much do you think you're going to win by this year? Ha, ha, ha. And he's like, well, how do you guys think you did? And we're like, well, we came in 11th last year, so our goal was to try and get at least 10th because we wanted to do better than last year. And they're calling all these awards, and first place in men's individual, some other guy got it this year. He got second place, and then they call the third place winner, and we're like, oh, cool. And then they go, the 2-person race, some guys we met in the woods that were with us for quite a while, they got second place. We're like, cool, that's awesome, man. Everybody's doing awesome. Glad to see people winning. And then they go 3 to 4 person division, first place, Beard It to Win It. That was our team name. And we literally were like, no way. Like, somebody's fucking with us. That's what we thought. And so we get up to like go get the award, and we're looking around like until the moment we had the award in our hands, we were like, there's no way. And I just like grabbed Mike and Kyle in front of everyone and hugged them super hard. I was like, fuck yeah. Like in front of all these people. Like I didn't even think about it. Like we had never considered that we were going to win. That was not a thought that went through our head. There was no point where any of us were like, yeah, we got this in the bag, baby. And it was just wild. Like we were in shock for the rest of the day. And the guy at the table who'd won a bunch of these things, he's done like, I think 120-hour races and all this crazy stuff. He's like, oh yeah, see, you guys won, blah, 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 blah. And we were just having a great time then. We're like, I can't believe this. This is insane. And like the whole moral of the story is you have to do things for yourself. Like I pushed that hard not to let my teammates down. I pushed that hard because I wanted to see what I was capable of. And we pushed ourselves mentally in trying to find the checkpoints that everyone was told not to go after because they're too hard. Essentially, like they sowed those seeds of doubt, essentially. I don't know if they meant to do that, But we're like, well, this is a good test of our ability. Like, let's push ourselves to see if we can find these. And I might be wrong, but I'm fairly confident that the man who announced this said that we were the only team who found all the checkpoints in that area. So we put ourselves ahead by doing the hard shit. You can't be afraid to do hard shit, I guess. That's the moral of the story. And, you know, my friend James from 4646 podcast and I talk about this all the time. We talk to each other every day and like, what hard shit did you do today? That's what we talk about. And, you know, it doesn't, like, winning doesn't come always from wanting to win. It comes from pushing yourself and trying shit that you're uncomfortable with. And that's what we did. That's all we did. We showed up. Our goal was to have fun, push ourselves. We had fun, that type 2 fun. We pushed ourselves a lot and we came out like on top. That's what it was. So, you know, that's the moral of the story. You got it. When I kept saying before the race, like, hey, we're all nervous, and that's a good thing. That means we're in the right place because we're doing stuff that's making us uncomfortable and scared. That's where we need to be right now. And so, like, I know that, but it doesn't make you any less nervous when you realize that. It just means you're doing something that you know you need to be doing because it's hard. And that's it. It's a very simple morale. Like, you're not always going to win. We're not always going to win. You know, we just did something that we wanted to do, and we did it to the best of our ability, and we just happened to win that time. Like, we didn't win the overall race. We won our division, which was more than we thought we'd ever get, but yeah, we did it. We worked our asses off. We came out where we did, and we're very happy about it. And I just encourage you guys, if you're in the Midwest, try it. I would say, judging by what I saw out there, a lot of the people don't know a lot about land navigation. Everyone looks like they do because they're pouring over maps and stuff, but it's not a thing we learn that much about anymore. So try it. It's hard. It's long. It's fun. They have a 12-hour race. Those people were still out there grinding through the course and we were done, and they're like extreme hard asses. But it's like definitely good to push yourself in new things. Like, I just got a fly rod. You guys heard me talk a million times about fly rods and how I don't think it's too hard and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that means I need to do it. I need to stop talking about it. I need to stop complaining about it. I just need to do it. So whenever you get a challenge in your face, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that means that you need to just push through that. Then you know what you're really capable of. Maybe this is just the beginning. I don't know. Maybe I'll never do another adventure race. I have no idea, but I've always will keep pushing myself. And, you know, I like to say it, like, if I can do it, you can do it. There's nothing special about me. I don't do anything special. You know, I'm a normal person. I go to the gym every day. I work out. You know, I do really hard workouts like CrossFit. I know everybody has like, oh, CrossFit. Like, I don't do it because it's trendy or cool. Like, it's the most brutal thing I've ever done. Mental toughness is the name of the game in that thing. And it just makes you push yourself to do things that you're uncomfortable with, that you never thought you could do. I never thought I could do a muscle up ever in my life. I weigh 245 pounds. I can do a muscle up. That's insane. You know, like, you just got to just keep pushing and keep training and keep doing things, and eventually they become simple. I texted James this morning. I said, it's so funny. A year ago, well, I don't know, approximately a year ago, I was doing 2 podcasts a month because I was like, that's all I had the time for, or the ability for. And he said, I think you should start doing them weekly. And I was like, I don't know if I have time. He's like, you can do it, dude. If anybody can do it, it's you. That's what he said. And so I started doing them weekly, and that just became normal. And I started releasing YouTube videos weekly, which I was like, I said the same thing. I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. Now it's just normal. I used to go to the gym 2-3 days a week. Now I go 5-6 days a week, and it's just normal. So it's like setting your new, like, normal, setting your new level. And I think that's a takeaway because, like, there's nothing special about what I've done, what I do. Like, I've never won anything in my life. This race is literally the first thing I've ever come in first place in, ever. Like, ever, since I was a child. So it just goes to show you just have to put in that effort, and it's not always fun. You got to do things you don't want to do. I don't like running. I don't want to run. I run all the time. I hate it. I don't even like riding bikes that much, but I do it because it's just necessary and to push yourself. So I can ramble on all day about this. Main takeaways: push yourself, do things that are hard, be confident even when you think that you don't know what you're doing, because guess what? Nobody else knows what the hell they're doing either. And try an adventure race. If you love the outdoors, if you listen to this podcast, you're probably similar to me in that you like doing a ton of different shit outside. ADHD about doing stuff, kayaking, biking, running, hiking, hunting, fishing, whatever it is. There's tons of outdoors recreation activities. If you like those, you'd love an adventure race. It's hard. It's fun. There's totally cool people out there that love the same stuff as you and me. Go out and try it. And I want to thank you all for listening to this podcast. I know it's basically just me rambling for, 50 minutes? But I appreciate it, and I hope you guys try something new. Hope you guys try something hard. And we'll be back next week with your regularly scheduled guest interview style podcast. And I want to thank James for pushing me to do this episode. So talk to you guys next week. Have a good one.